Right, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a review on the new Marshall Bromley 750, which I've got in front of me here. So yeah, we'll go through the specs, talk about the price, play a sound test, and I'll show you around it. But yeah, this retails for £900, quite expensive. The design is quite nice. You've got all these lights on the front. You can there's 3 different light modes that you can kind of have, almost 3 different like levels of aggression. The third one is quite like in your face, it dances to the music. The first one is quite calm, the second one's kind of just in the middle. But yeah, it looks nice at the front. Looks kind of like, you know, the classic Marshall old kind of amplifier look. It's got the kind of leather around the sides and the back and the top, which is nice. It's got a big suitcase handle at the back and some handles on the side as well. And then you've got some flaps on the back for the removable battery and the ports, and then you've got all the nice kind of metal dials on the front for all of the various settings that we've got going on here. And all the buttons and controls feel very tactile and very premium. So design-wise, I really like this thing. I can imagine that it's probably not the most waterproof though, due to those, but I guess we will find out once we go through the specs. But yeah, £900 is a bit steep starting off because it doesn't immediately give off that kind of vibe, but spec wise, so it does actually have 360-degree sound, and that's done by 2 side firing drivers, 2 upwards firing tweeters, 1 front firing driver and another front firing tweeter, and then 2 rear firing drivers as well. So that consists of 2 10-inch 150-watt woofers, 2 5.25-inch 50-watt mid-range drivers, 2 1-inch 7-watt tweeters, and 2 0.8-inch 14-watt tweeters. So it's a versatile speaker, and on paper I really like that. I like the fact that we've got 360-degree sound is nice, although I'm not sure it's really necessary in a speaker like in this form factor. But it's nice to have. But it's nice that we've got woofers, we've got mid-range drivers, and we've got tweeters. So unlike the JBL party boxes, the route that they're going, we're actually getting the full kind of range of drivers here. So hopefully we'll be getting kind of every part of the sound, if that makes sense. The frequency response is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So the 20 kilohertz on the top end is very average, but 20 hertz on the low end is very impressive. I think the JBL party boxes and boom boxes go up to like 38, maybe 34 at the lowest. So yeah, 20 hertz on the low end is very impressive. We're getting a lot of low end deep bass here. It's got battery. It has 40 hours of playtime, which is very impressive. That will probably be at like less than 50% volume with all the lights off and stuff. It's got the battery has a fast charging mode, so 20 minutes of charge will get you 5 hours of playtime, and it will take 3.5 hours to charge from 0 to 100. So yeah, not too bad considering the size of it and considering the playtime you get off it. Also, it's got a removable battery, so you can just hot swap it, you know, for another one if you buy more of them. So kind of similar to the JBL party boxes, that you can literally just kind of hot swap batteries forever if you've got 3 or 4 of them, or 2 or 3 of them, and just charge the other one while you've got one playing. Then you can just basically have infinite battery life. It can also just run directly off AC power, so you don't even need a battery in it if you don't want. Stereo sound, obviously, and it is heavy. It weighs 23.9 kilos. So it weighs more than you'd expect looking at it, because it's not massive. But yeah, it is heavy. It's running Bluetooth 5.3, which includes Auracast, so you should get some really nice stereo pairing with other speakers and other models of other Bromleys anyway. And then we've got so many controls on the front, it's kind of arguably too many, to be honest. So we've got power switch on the left, we've got a source button in the middle of that. So you've got the Bluetooth, you can swap between aux and USB-C inputs. And then you've got a button to play and pause this music, and to skip and return to the previous track. Then you've got a volume slider, so that's 0 to 10. That obviously syncs with your phone, so you never necessarily need to touch that. Then you've got a bass slider, 0 to 10 as well, and treble, 0 to 10. For all of these sound tests, I'm just going to be leaving bass and treble at the standard 5th, like 5 out of 10, just kind of middle increment, because we kind of just want to hear how it comes out of the box. I might move them around a bit in the sound test, but if I'm not explicitly doing that, then they will be at 5. And then you've got some input, some dials for like the microphone inputs. So you've got 0 to 10 volume for input 1, 0 to 10 volume for input 2, and then you've got some sound reverb effects and stuff like that for microphones. And then on the right, you've got a dial for sound character, which is a very different one. So all the way to the left, it would change it to be more dynamic. And then on the right hand side, you've got loud. So it kind of depends on what environment you're in. If you want it, if you're outside and you've got a big party of 200 people, then you're going to turn it all the way to loud. You'll lose a little bit of clarity in the music. It will start to sound a little bit more kind of, you know, cheaper party box style, but it's much louder and much bassier. So for an outdoor party where everyone's drunk and they're not listening to the music anyway, that would fit that, because it's just going to pump out more volume, and that's what you want. And if you're indoors and you're not really too fussed about volume, then you can put it all the way down to dynamic, and then which will reduce quite a lot of the volume, so you have to have it playing quite high, but you'll get a more flat kind of frequency range out of it and more accurate sound reproduction. Obviously it's a dial as well, so you can have anywhere in between. Out the box, obviously, again, it comes just in the middle, 5 out of 10, so in between dynamic and loud. Again, I'll kind of fiddle with that during the sound test, and we can see how that changes the sound. So there's a lot going on here. It's almost like a bit of a spaceship to actually control and find the settings you like, which is cool, but in a way I don't like that very much. I quite like just getting a speaker out the box, sticking it in bass mode 1 or whatever, like the JBLs, and then you just play and it sounds good. It's almost kind of annoying that you have to spend so long fiddling with all the settings on this to find the way you like it, but obviously everyone's going to be different in that regard. So yeah, it's got the stage lights, it's got mic and instrument inputs, like 2 of them on the back. It's IP54 dirt and splash resistance, so yeah, it's kind of like similar to the party boxes, I suppose, in that you don't want to like roll it around in the sand, and you don't want to submerge it in any water or leave it out in the heavy rain for too long. It's resistant to dirt and splashes. So, you know, someone spilling a drink on it, fine. It getting a little bit dirty in the back of your car, fine. But being in, you know, in a sand pit, probably not a good idea. So you do have to bear that in mind with this. It's not necessarily an outdoor military grade rugged speaker. It's kind of somewhere in between. So that's most of the specs there. It's got quite a lot going for it. You would kind of expect so for the sound, for the price, to be honest. But yeah, more interesting, obviously. We'll listen to it. We'll have the frequency chart up. I'll fiddle with the bass and treble sliders and the sound character a little bit, and you can kind of see how that changes the music. But it will always be at 80% volume, so you can see how that changes the volume as well. And then we can speak about the sound afterwards. Okay, sweet. So that's the sound test over. We can see from the frequency response graph, obviously I changed the modes quite a lot. So, you know, you'll have to watch it while the sound is playing to see it a bit more in action at the mode you want. But you can see at the peak of everything, we get very high bass. It does drop off a little bit quicker than the Party Box, the 720 seemed to. So I'm not quite sure about that 20 hertz on the low end. I do actually need to adjust my scale on here because I don't think we can even see that. So that's my bad. But yeah, it doesn't seem like we're necessarily getting much lower, but it doesn't sound like we're getting much lower bass than the JBLs. And the high end is tailing off a bit quicker as well. You can see it's kind of starting to tail off around 10k, whereas I noticed the Party Box was kind of like more like 15. So not a massively impressive frequency range from what we're seeing. Also, you notice from the decibel meter that it's not very loud. Like most of the time it's running in the 80s, sometimes, you know, high 90s maybe at peaks, but it's not very loud either, considering the price and the size and the weight of the thing. So that's a bit strange. Yeah, you heard me messing around with the toggles. When you put the bass all the way up, it's kind of too high. Drowns out the mids and it sounds a little bit. It does start to distort. Similarly, if you put the treble up, it starts to get a little bit of distortion, and then it drowns out the bass. Obviously, you'd want those somewhere in between, but I probably don't really mess with those too much. Maybe have the bass at 1 or 2 notches above, like maybe 6 or 7, but realistically, they don't need to be messed with. The sound character is weird because, like you heard, I did it to dynamic first, and it gets really quiet, and it doesn't necessarily sound like, I'm not hearing much of a difference in the sound quality. It's just quieter to my ears. Bear in mind that was at 80% volume as well. Like it does go really, really quiet. But then even worse, when you put it all the way up to loud, it sounds like almost unlistenable too. I don't even know why they've let you do that, because especially if you put it all the way up to loud and then turn bass all the way up, which I didn't do there, but if you do, it sounds horrific. But even just with all the way out loud, it sounds cheap. It kind of sounds like some kind of JVC speaker or whatever those old ones used to be called. I don't even know if they make them anymore. It just sounds really unbalanced and very distorty. That's a word. So to be honest, I think a lot of the controls on this, like, they look cool, but they're kind of almost just for show. They almost all seem to make it worse than just listening to it at the default setting. Like, if you put the bass up to 6 or 7 out of 10, it doesn't seem to make that much difference, and eventually you just get distortion. So, I mean, obviously I am only playing through a phone with Spotify. I'm not using any kind of fancy setup here, so that may be contributing to it, but I don't really find that any of these settings make much difference. On the light, well, they do make a difference, but I don't find they make a difference that you'd actually want to see. On the lights, you can see me swapping between 1, 2, and 3. I find that the first light setting is too slow. It's literally just kind of like a twinkle. The second one is okay, but it doesn't seem to react with the music much. It just seems to do a standard pattern. And the third one is arguably too much. But obviously it lacks the character and the complexity that the JBL Party Boxes have in their light shows, because it's literally just lines of LEDs. There's no, like, you know, there's no colours or patterns going on here. It's literally just lines. So it does look a little bit kind of disappointing in comparison to those. But yeah, overall, I'm not quite sure about this speaker. It's expensive, let's put it that way. You know, it's more than the Party Box 720. It's bordering on £1,000 right now. And I just don't think it sounds like an £1,000 speaker. Even with everything at the default settings, like you saw on our frequency chart and can still see, it's not overly impressive. We've seen much better than that. It's not very loud. And then when you start messing around with settings, it just kind of makes it worse. And it feels like you always have to fiddle with all of those to try and get better sound out of it, but you never really do, which just kind of annoys you. It's nice to just, you know, at the end of the day, these speakers are developed by manufacturers who know what they're doing. Like, they know more than any of the end users. So why am I supposed to be changing the sound character and the bass and the treble? That should be the job of the manufacturer and the people designing the thing, which I feel like is what JBL do quite well. You know, it's got AI sound boost and stuff like that. It changes the sound by itself, and it does it very well, and it just means you can turn the speaker on and forget about it, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. Obviously, this speaker is made for a slightly different audience, but I just think for me, it doesn't really work. It's too expensive, and a lot of the features are just kind of pointless. I also think they maybe focused a bit too much on getting this to have 360-degree sound, because it's got a lot of drivers in it, but they're not like, this is like a soundbox style speaker. You don't it's unlikely to be sat in the middle of a room. It's going to be sat on a stand at the front of a stage or something like that. So it doesn't need to be 360. I think it would be a lot better if they just had all the sound pumping this way. I think that might be part of the reason it sounds like a bit quiet, to be honest, because the sound's just going everywhere. You can see the speakers on the top, there's 2 on the sides, there's 2 on the back, and there's two on every side basically. And that just means that you're never really getting all of the speaker. You're getting the same amount all around it, but that's kind of irrelevant, I think, on this design of speaker. It's not the kind of thing that you're going to leave in the middle of a room on a table because it's too big. So it's going to sit in a corner anyway, just kind of by the nature of its design. So I think they put too much effort into the 360 sound, and I think that's kind of ruined the playback from a perspective like this, where you're just sat in front of it. I think it doesn't sound as good as it could do if they just focused on making it a front-firing speaker. I think it's too expensive, and I think it doesn't do the job well enough, and it makes the job more confusing than it needs to be with all of these options. So let me know if you agree with me. Have you tried one out? Are you going to pick one up? What do you think about it? Pop it down in the comments, and I'll try and respond to your